It's the year 1908, and Henry Ford just released a car that would become a staple of car culture all around the world, the Ford Model T. Making barely 22.5 horsepower, contributed to the success of one of the biggest car companies in the world. Now, over 100 years later, Ford cars are popular around the globe with a plethora of models ranging from light trucks like the Ford F-150 and F-250 to sports cars like the Shelby GT500. But Ford is an American company, producing cars for the American market. These models weren't so popular in Europe, where gas prices were much higher, making these huge V8 engines not a great financial decision. But unfortunately for Henry, if you want to build a multinational company raking in millions of dollars of profit, you can't really exclude the second biggest available market. And so, in 1967, Ford decided to make a separate branch of the main company, located in Europe, that would focus on making smaller and more economical cars. And that's how the Ford of Europe was born, merging separate subsidiaries from individual countries like the Ford of Britain, Ford Germany and Henry Ford Limited from Ireland simplified the marketing of new models across the whole continent. And with that, the new division got to work as planned. And in October the same year, they unveiled a new model, better suited for the European domestic market. The Ford Escort. It was a hit, selling extremely well in most Western European countries, but in the UK people loved it, and they loved it so much it became the most sold car of the 1960s in the whole country. In the next 6 years, Ford produced around 2 million cars, with over half being made in Britain. And that's just the Mark I model. It was the small rear-wheel drive economy car Europe needed, with a 1.1 or 1.3 liter engine mated to a 4-speed manual transmission with an option of a 3-speed automatic, and a simple suspension setting with McPherson struts in the front and a live rear axle. It was relatively cheap to produce and maintain. This model also started the rally lineage of the Escort, with a modified Escort twin cam with a 1.5 liter Lotus engine making 105 horsepower, later replaced by the RS 1600 and the RS 2000, which were extremely successful for a car based on such an unassuming base. Then came the Escort Mark II. It shared a lot of the same parts with the Mark I, with the main changes being to the body of the car, making the styling even more boxy than its predecessor. It had the following engine options: 1.1, 1.3, 1.6, 1.8 and 2.0 liter, with further improvements being mostly cosmetic. The production ended around 1980. As for the rallying stuff, the Mark II was pretty successful, with the RS 1600 and RS 2000 models carried over from the previous model, with the addition of the new RS 1800 with a new 1.8 liter engine making around 115 horsepower. You can basically think of this generation as a little more advanced facelift. The following third generation was much more than a slightly different looking Mark I. Unlike the two previous cars, it made use of front-wheel drive to improve fuel efficiency, as well as a new hatchback body style. It also finally upgraded its suspension to an all-around independent setup. The engine options were brand new overhead cam models with either 1.3 or 1.6 liters of displacement. Later, there came the option to mount a 5-speed manual transmission. Unfortunately, the rally version has almost nothing in common with the production variant apart from the body, so I'll only talk about it briefly. The RS 1700T followed the naming convention of the previous models, this time featuring a turbocharger, letting this rear-wheel drive beast output the maximum power of around 300 brake horsepower. Sadly, this model was later scrapped and instead used as a basis for the all-wheel drive RS 200. Made to compete with the Audi Quattro. The Mark IV was basically a facelift version of the Mark III, featuring changes like the addition of optional ABS and heated windshield and an updated interior, with later slight refinements to engine displacement options and a 1.8 liter diesel. The Mark V came in 1990 with a new body style and a downgrade to rear suspension, making it a torsion beam instead of a fully independent setup like the previous generations. Initially, the engine options were carried over from the previous model, but in 1992 Ford developed a new Zetec 16-valve engine, finally letting the Escort have the performance it deserves. The new model also featured options such as power steering, central locking, and electric windows or AC. The 6th generation came in 1995. This version featured much more aerodynamic styling, although it was still based on a now 5-year-old car. Although the low-end engines have been revised along with the transmission, in June 1996 the last RS 2000 model left the factory floor, and the RS badge did not return until 2002. Sometime later there came a minor facelift, sometimes called the Mark VII. But technically it was still the Mark VI. It was produced up until the year 2000, and in some local markets up until 2004, with the most powerful model having a 2.0 inline-4 dual overhead camshaft engine making 227 horsepower. Fun fact, this was my first car. The only difference is that mine had and still has a 1.6 liter, making only 90 horsepower. Anyways, after that, the Escort got replaced by the Ford Focus and promptly forgotten. As we study the Escort lineage, we can see a missed opportunity with the departure from a rear-wheel drive rally-inspired car to another boring everyday grocery getter, with below-average production quality at that. Apart from the questionable name choice, perhaps if they kept the original vision going, the Escort of today would be something on par with the Mitsubishi Lancer or the Subaru Impreza, but we'll never know. Of course, that's not the only car that Ford Europe produced, but I may make a video about each one separately, so I can go more in depth. If you want to see a specific car or a family of cars, you can let me know in the comments below. You can also subscribe if you want to get a notification when I upload next. That's the end of the video, see you next time.
I see London, I see France, your girl in her underground.